Tuesday
Yeah.
Bible study, and that's the last I heard from her.
There's no mission meeting today, is there? No.
Don't ask
It was
me.
more recent. It was last week.
It was last week,
Yeah.
you're right.
Was your meeting okay?
Yeah, it was okay. We were just talking about it. It's been a while since I've been to a Presbytery meeting. But there's Barbara. It's not my favorite way to handle a meeting with 100 people in it because it was Zoom. It was all Zoom.
Oh,
So it was 4 pages of pictures. And, the moderators try to organize it. I think it completely squelches discussion. But I don't know. I was never all that impressed that people were bold enough to have discussions even met in person. People generally are very shy and they don't want to make waves, like me.
Oh, really?
Hi, Barbara.
Good morning.
Nope, you're muted. She's talking, but she doesn't know she's muted, I guess.
Okay,
There
too
you
many
are.
steps.
Too many steps.
Too many steps. Well, there you are. You're in.
You see, Barbara has a shirt on today that doesn't have short sleeves. At least
Oh, it
It's
was
chilly.
48 when I got up this morning.
Oh, I feel so bad for you. So bad.
I knew it was cold down there. Yeah.
Yeah, no, if it gets hot, it's 70. It's still not hot enough for the pool for me.
I'll have to get my glasses.
Oh, well, yeah, I did notice that it was pretty chilly. I saw it was cold down there, so.
But it's sunny and I can, trying to walk a bit, but yeah. I'm sure it's a lot warmer than it is there.
Oh, yeah.
What do you,
It was,
48 is the high?
I don't even know if it's gonna get to that point today. It's probably in
Really?
the low 40s. It was 18 this morning, so
Oh, no.
that's pretty cool. Yeah.
I'd say so.
But it will get warmer, they said, towards the end of the week, so, and it is.
Yeah.
Spring's coming.
Almost.
yeah, but it'll be wet.
Yeah, it's supposed to
When
get
it's warm,
rain.
it's wet.
Rain tomorrow.
Yeah,
You're
it's
supposed to.
rain. Yeah.
Great.
Rain,
That's
rain.
wonderful.
Oh, well.
Other than ice and snow, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, what's
Yes,
the problem
ma'am.
with that? That's not a problem.
My whole family leaves for Mexico on Friday, so please let the weather be okay.
Wow. What's the occasion?
Vacation time, school vacation for the kids
Oh,
up in New Hampshire, and Romy and Sam go every year. So they're gonna meet up at their usual haunt in Cancun. And they'll have a nice week, I hope.
oh, that's wonderful.
Yep.
Well, here we are. Welcome back. Welcome to those of you who are joining in online. We are reading through the book of Isaiah, the books of Isaiah, very distinctively different writings from very distinctively different authors, all grouped up under the name Isaiah. We can find what we think are at least 3 natural divisions. So there's Isaiah 1, Isaiah 2, and Isaiah 3, and we are on chapter 60, and that means that we are in the heart of Isaiah 3. This part written from a much later time, a time after a lot of the destruction and rebuilding and destruction have happened to Israel. And the questions that go to the prophets, to the writers, is why? It's always why. It's why is God doing this? Why is God allowing this? Why are these things happening? And can you give us, please, O prophet, can you give us some meaning of the time? What is the meaning of the present time? And I've said before, it's very important. The prophets are not fortune tellers. They are not. They're not. That's just not a function in the society. A prophet was a person who would tear open the present moment and tell you what was happening in the present moment. They might unfold what they think would be the consequences. You know, if you continue to abuse the poor, you will find that the poor will rise up and overturn your government. That's one of the great prophecies, if you will. But it's usually in a moment where the prophet is passing judgment and saying, you are abusing the poor. You are treating badly the sojourners who want to come and find security in your nation. You are you're robbing widows of their money. You are, and so again, prophets are tearing open the present moment and describing what will happen given the way people are behaving. Not unlike what we do today. You know, we have the same kind of fortune tellers, if you will, prophets, who say, this is what's going on and this is what will happen if we do not change our ways. So, having said that, why don't we read Isaiah 60, because in it is a promise of something new that will come.
Okay, I'll read. Okay. Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord has risen upon you. For darkness shall cover the earth, thick darkness the peoples. But the Lord will arise upon you, and his glory will appear over you. Nations shall come to your light, and kings to the brightness of your dawn. Lift up your eyes and look around. They all gather together. They come to you. Your son shall come from far away, and your daughters shall be carried on their nurses' arms. Then you shall see and be radiant. Your heart shall thrill and rejoice, because the abundance of the sea shall be brought to you. The wealth of the nations shall come to you. A multitude of camels shall cover you. The young camels of Midian and Ephah, all those from Sheba shall come. They shall bring gold and frankincense and shall proclaim the praise of the Lord. All the flocks of Kedar shall be gathered to you. The reins of Nebo shall minister to you. They shall be acceptable on my altar. The rams. And I will glorify my glorious house. Who are these that fly like a cloud and like doves to their windows? For the coastlands shall wait for me, the ships of Tarshish first, to bring your children from far away. Their silver and gold with them, for the name of the Lord your God, and for the Holy One of Israel, because he has glorified you. Foreigners shall build up your walls, and their king shall minister to you. For in my wrath I struck you down, but in my favor I have had mercy on you. Your gates shall always be open. Day and night they shall not be shut, so that nations shall bring you your wealth, with their kings led in procession. For the nation and kingdom that will not serve you shall perish. Those nations shall be utterly laid waste. The glory of Lebanon shall come to you, the cypress, the plane, and the pine, to beautify the place of my sanctuary. And I will glorify where my feet rest. The descendants of those who oppressed you shall come bending low to you, and all who despised you shall bow down at your feet. They shall call you the city of the Lord, the Zion of the Holy One of Israel. Whereas you shall have been forsaken and hated, with no one passing through, I will make you majestic forever, a joy from age to age. You shall suck the milk of nations, and shall suck the breasts of kings. And you shall know that I, the Lord, am your Savior, and your Redeemer, the mighty one of Jacob. Instead of bronze, I will bring gold. Instead of iron, I will bring silver. Instead of wood, bronze. Instead of stones, iron. I will appoint peace as your overseer, and righteousness as your taskmaster. Violence shall no more be heard in your land. Devastation or destruction within your borders. You shall call your walls salvation, and your gates praise. The sun shall no longer be your light by day, nor for brightness shall the nation give light to you by night. But the Lord will be your everlasting light, and your God will be your glory. Your sun shall no more go down, or your moon withdraw itself. For the Lord will be your everlasting light, and your days of mourning shall be ended. Your people shall all be righteous. They shall possess the land forever. They are the shoot that I planted, the work of my hands, so that I might be glorified. The least of them shall become a clan, and the smallest one a mighty nation. I am the Lord. In its time, I will accomplish it quickly.
Okay.
Is this Isaiah running for president?
Yeah.
Some
So-
of the promises seem,
People,
yeah.
when people ask, what's the definition of Zionism? This is it. This is the Zionism manifesto. This is the belief that the restoration of Israel may be good for the people, but as it goes on, I have to say, I'm shocked. I'm shocked because, you know, the one that Christians are very familiar with is, arise, shine, your light has come. The glory of the Lord has been upon you. Darkness shall cover the earth and thick darkness, but the Lord will rise upon you and his glory will appear on you. That part becomes part of the mantra of what I call Christian triumphalism. The belief that Christianity itself will now be able to claim these promises, and that Christianity will rule the world, that all the nations ultimately will bow their knee to whatever the present form of Christianity happens to be. Christians adopt this. There are strains among Jewishness. Zionism is alive and well, especially rekindled a lot with the formation of the Jewish state. And I don't mean to say that people who love the Jewish state are all Zionists, who see, you know, that the Jewish nation will rise and all the nations of the world will come to them, bringing them gifts. I don't think that goes hand in hand, but wow. Wow. The vision here of you've been down, you've been out, you've been punished, and now you walked in darkness, you've seen how bad it can get in life, but now, because of my hand, God says, I am going to make the sun rise on you, and everything that was bad will now be good.
There's a lot of vengeance in here, though, too. I mean,
Goodness,
you know,
there is. If they don't,
people who put you down, you will put them down.
right? If they don't come to your gate and come in and head bowed, then I will see to it. I can't remember the language, but it's like, wow, you know, they shall come bending low to you, and all who despise you shall bow down at your feet. They shall call you the city of the Lord, the Zion of the Holy One of Israel.
Okay. I think the Zionist part comes in where the people start to believe that they have a right to a certain portion of the earth because God promised it. And no one else has any claim upon it, just us. And I think every nation kind of feels that way. Nationalism is, a big deal nowadays. Everybody seems to feel that whatever nation they belong to is the one that has the absolute right to wherever they happen to be, and everybody else can go pound salt. And the new movement towards Christian nationalism, which isn't actually new. It was big in the 30s and it's coming back to haunt. I mean, you see that, and I believe you're right. This passage kind of gives you the okay, because God said it is, it's yours. Go get it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're Jewish and you see Christians reading this and claiming it for them, you go, what are you doing?
Right. It's not yours, it's ours.
It's not yours. That promise is not to you. Okay, Jesus was Jewish, but Jesus altered the essential text and the promise of God. Jesus, even if he was resurrected from the dead, he doesn't establish Christianity as the new Judaism, which is exactly what Christians later on began to say. This is we are the new Jerusalem. God has given up on Jewish people who don't even know how to read the Old Testament. That's the way, that's the way most conservative evangelicals think about Christians, or think about Jewish people. They didn't get Jesus. He was right there in front of them. He was God in the flesh, and they didn't get it. So they're just stupid. And they didn't. And the prophecies, quote unquote prophecies of their own Hebrew scriptures, pointed to him, made it clear that Jesus was who he was, and the fact that he came to his own, and his own knew him not. So they claim this promise now, the arise, shine promise, now is claimed and has been claimed at various times for Christians. Christians read it. They read it during the time of the explorations to the west and the discovery of their discovery of North America.
Right.
Obviously.
How you discover something
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
people occupy already, I don't know, but
That's right.
yeah. But that's because that's part of this promise that you will get something because of your faithfulness.
Right.
And there it is. Take it. Never mind those people that are in the way. Just push them aside.
Yeah, because, it's vengeance. It's being reestablished, making Israel great again. There it is. That's it. Making Jerusalem great again. And God is going to do it. God's going to bring beautiful timbers and flowers and spices from all over the world to adorn the city. And the people are going to be, you're going to be king of your own garden. All of you are going to have slaves. You're going to have people that are bowing down at you as you're walking by.
All right. I guess if you are feeling badly about your community, you hear this, you go, oh, okay, that'll make you feel better. But if you really think about it, you're displacing others.
Yeah. Well, and now I'm going to talk about something I don't know that much about, okay? But I think this is where some of the anti-Semitism in cluster groups, people who pull off and try to find out why aren't they succeeding in the world? Why aren't we stronger? Why? I was thinking about the new white supremacy groups that are marching on the streets, and why are we the weak ones? Why are we the weak ones? And ultimately, in their meetings, they will turn and they will say, well, what do you expect? Because the Jewish people they don't want to just be our friends in the world. The Jewish people see us as an obstacle in the way to their ultimate rule of the world. And they'll read the second parts of Isaiah chapter 60 and say, look, here it is, right here. These people are not neutral among us. They're not here to be friends. They're not here for interfaith dialogue. They're here to rule the world. And that's where it gets ginned up, that whole idea that these are people who have designs for taking over the entire world in the name of God.
So anybody reading this, doesn't matter what background you're from, you can twist it so it means you.
Yes.
That you are the one.
Yes. You can read it as a reason to be frightened of whoever you think this is too. You can also claim it and go, oh, there once was a group who thought that they were the Israel, that they thought they were the Zion, but we are the Zion. That was a mantra of David Koresh out in his little colony out there. They were the new Zion. The people that gathered around him were being promised this. And they're reading the Bible, and these are people, many of them were poor, oppressed by the economic systems, discarded, living out, with little means. And they read these words of God that say, your day is coming. And you're going to be king of the world. Because you are the new, you are the new Jerusalem. God has rejected the old Jerusalem. At the heart of Christian theology, we work past it when we do interfaith dialogue, but at the heart of Christian theology is the idea that God once loved the Jews, but they just refused to hear God's message. And so God divorced them and chose us. God has chosen now a new bride, and the bride is the church. It's the followers of Jesus, and we are the New Jerusalem. And I don't know. I'm a Christian pastor, but if I wasn't, and you're a sociologist, and you step back and you look at these thought trends, you go, what is wrong with people? Why this need so much to rule the world? And to argue that God, Theos, the author and finisher of everything that is, has somehow decided that you should be the ones that will ultimately have, there's pretty graphic images here. These people are going to bow down at your feet. The world is going to bow down at your feet. Now, I know they're talking specifically about the city of Jerusalem. But the city of Jerusalem is going to be, whereas you have been forsaken and hated with no one passing through you, I will make you majestic forever. This is the promise to the city. But I think indirectly it's the promise to the people who own the city as their city. This is what's going to happen. Nation and kingdom that will not serve you will perish. And those nations shall be utterly laid to waste. Again, I'm going to talk about something I don't know anything about, but I'm going to bet that in circles among very Zionist Jewish leaders in Israel today, they read these passages.
Oh, I'm sure they do.
And they see the suffering that's being caused by the Palestinians. They won't get out of the way. They won't let us do what God has called us to do. And they also see the Muslim community as these are the nations that wouldn't serve us, and so God is going to lay them waste.
And also the Christian community. Yeah. And I think, you go to verse 9, for the coastlands shall wait for me, the ships of Tarshish first, to bring your children from far away. The right of return for Israel, for Jewish people coming to Israel, but not for Palestinians who were forced out. It's like, where is this the God that I want to think that? Where is the compassion and mercy and?
Well, they brought it on themselves. You turn against God's people, you got to be ready to suffer.
So I don't like to believe that, but,
No, I don't either.
and
I'm
I
just
don't
saying.
like to think that Christianity believes that either. I mean, I don't think, do you, really?
Christians do. Christians, you can bend the Christian theology to get behind that kind of thinking. Is it right thinking? Not in my view.
Yeah, I
No.
don't know that the majority of Christians actually probably don't even pay any attention to.
No, but, okay, so say somewhere about what you think the majority of Christians don't believe. The majority of Christians,
I don't know.
I don't think the majority of Christians
I always
see.
bought into what Jesus said. That's kind of like, and that's anti, put down your neighbors, put down the people who are your neighbors. It's do what.
The situation line base. So I'm going to start with why the owner of the building has been on location.
What was that?
I'm losing you.
Oh, no.
Are you there?
Yeah, I can, but I couldn't hear. All of a sudden it was squeaky.
Yeah, there was some other voice on there, and I don't think it was Colette.
No, I don't think so.
I don't know what it was. Anyway, I don't know what most Christians feel, but I know what I felt. You listen to what Jesus said, and that's not this. It's not, God's promising you riches and, and the subservience of your neighbors and all. That's, I don't know.
Oh, no, I think you do know. I think we all know that I mean, I can't help it. I keep hearing it in the frame of what, they're saying is the rise of Christian nationalism. That the nation of the United States is God's nation. And that the reason that we are a powerhouse economically and politically and militarily in the world is because God has built us up to be this, and that we should not lay down that role.
Well,
And that we have to whip the world into shape.
oh boy, well, that's a problem.
And the question is legitimate, and that is, well, if the Christianity that you have is formed on the trail of following Jesus, where does Jesus endorse that kind of behavior? Where? In what words? In what way? I mean, at one point he cursed a fig tree because it didn't produce any fruit, but I don't see, he also had a pretty violent exchange in the temple when the hometown boys and girls were taking advantage of the outsiders and unfair trade practices.
And he also sided with the foreigners amongst the people.
He
So I
did.
think it's the antithesis of this kind of thinking.
Yeah, I mean, he lifted up the Samaritans as people who would be more likely even to do good than the hometown people. And he chose at one point, I think it's Paul, raises the ire of people when he points out that most of the miracles that Jesus did, he did for non-Jewish people. And even in the Hebrew scriptures, like the Naaman, he was a conquering general, and God healed him through one of the prophets of leprosy. Why did God heal a foreign conquering man? So you still have, throughout even the Hebrew scriptures, through the Jewish scriptures, you still have strong competing ideas against this idea that when God is on your side, God will be on your side against other people.
Yeah.
Karl Barth said the best understanding of Christianity is the phrase God is for you. God is for you. But you have to put a period at the end of that sentence and not allow it to drift into God is for you in your fight against other people.
Exactly.
God is pro you, but God is also pro your neighbor and pro the world, and God is for the human race. So when you get your back up in the air and you decide to, wipe out your neighbors, You can't do it in the name of God. You can't. And I'm so glad that's never happened.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, oh, gee.
When will it ever stop
When
happening?
will it stop? I don't know. I think it's finding pockets and ways of starting again. You know, we don't like you. Jesus doesn't like you. So, you get out of our way. Or in the name of God, we'll move up right over top of you.
And kill you all.
And kill you all.
I think there's some talk in the prominent Republican nominee that if you are not to our liking, we're going to round you up and put you in a camp where you can't do any harm to the rest of us good guys. You know, that's
Oh,
kind of
God.
thinking like this.
Yeah, I know. I agree.
And it's kind of thinking of like what's happening in Gaza right now.
In what?
In Gaza.
Gaza, yeah.
Yeah.
They were told to go, you know, south. They all went south. Then they bombed the south. Then they said you can go to Rafah because it's safe. And now it's not. And then they were told to go to the seashore, go out by the ocean. Could it be any more symbolic? We want to push you, you know. And so now it's not. Now they're strafing the beaches with gunfire. And so it's obvious they don't want Palestinians in Palestine anymore. If you leave, you can't come back, and that's it. And if you don't leave, we'll kill you. But it's not any much different from Hamas when they said, we don't want Israelis to be between the river and the sea either. I mean, when are people going to start to realize that it probably would be in your best interest to get along with each other? And I know there are a lot of people who feel that way. It just so happens that the people who come to power are the ones who are the rabble rousers, and you know, and they get people riled up, and people can never forget who wronged them. And this is just like that. You know, I'm not going to let you forget that at one time you were displaced by others and taken advantage of, because you are going to come back, but at the expense of the other. I mean, it's just awful.
I think there's a theme that I'm hearing as you're doing that, and I'm listening and saying, okay, well, what is the summary of this? I mean, I look at the leadership in Israel today, and I think their reply is, no, we don't hate Palestinians. But you don't understand that the field that contains the Palestinians contains murderers and robbers and terrorists. And this is what leadership won't tolerate. Leadership cannot tolerate that they allow another attack like what happened to take place. So when they tell people, okay, oh, you all go to the south, what they know is, yes, innocent women and children and men trying to make a living, they migrated south. Well, guess what? Guess who migrated with them? The people who migrated with them are the rabble rousers. They are the haters who, if they gain strength again and they strike again, the leadership is going to get hung.
Well,
and so
they probably are anyway.
But it's
not
yeah,
literally, but
it's a demand. It's a demand that the populace has. That is, it's like a double bind. Get the bad people out. Get them out, or you're a failure. But don't hurt anybody on your way of doing that. And that, I just think that's, we have tolerated it. We tolerated it after 9/11. I was in the pulpit preaching, and I wasn't popular, but I just could not understand what had happened to my country of law and order, and people, deserve a trial before they're executed. All of that went out the window. And it went out the window in hunt and search for the people that had surprised us, had attacked us, and wounded our sense of confidence in the world. We hated whoever did that.
right.
We hated them
So
enough.
we went right for Iraq
I know.
instead of the Saudi Arabians
we
who did
went
it.
for somebody,
Right.
Somebody had to be on the altar.
And this assumes that there are no bad people in Israel,
Right.
that there are not, settlers in the West Bank shooting people for just going out to their olive orchards, and they get away with it. I mean, both sides have grievances.
They do, and the grievances are legitimate.
They are.
But the question then becomes,
That doesn't mean you
where
yeah.
does the regular person go
Right.
to live their life? As they say in the mantras about the United States, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Where do the people go for whom that is their dream, and they also want to be at home in the land and the nation that they thought of as home? The problem is, I don't know that either in Israel or in Palestine, in the north or in the south, east or in the west, I'm not sure that dream right now is possible because of the incredible hostility there is and the blame that someone's got to pay.
Right.
Or we have to have such violent capacity that it will become our defense.
And the leaders in Israel that were for the peacemakers were assassinated.
Yes.
So I don't think it's the majority of Israelis who agree with genocide, and I really don't think it's mostly Palestinians either. But at this point, you have to say, I mean, what are you fomenting here? It's going to go on forever because when you mistreat and do violence, it's going to come back, no matter what side is the perpetrator. And even South Africa was pretty amazing that they were able to, they've not gotten over apartheid, but move through it to the point where they seem to be coexisting, where I never thought they would.
Right. I think the difference between South Africa and the reparations that it took place and the mending and forgiving is, they shared a common religion. The Afrikaners, the Dutch Afrikaners, were Christians.
Sort of.
Well, I'm just saying, they had, as a resource...
They were Christian nationalists.
Well, they were Christians. They had in their own... I mean, I just recently watched the Mandela movie again. And what was Mandela's appeal when he became president? What was his appeal to the whites he had kept in his cabinet? His appeal to them was, we must be people of forgiveness. And to the blacks that came in, his chief of staff, who wanted to eliminate all the white people, he said, we must be people of forgiveness. And he was counting on then, whether it was ever practiced or not, he was trying to unpack the treasure chest of what do we ultimately believe. And he could appeal to something in common of what they believed.
But forgiveness is a commonality between Judaism, Islam, and Christianity.
Yes.
So
It's a little harder to do to forgive the person of the other religion than it is because it's like, what always happens in these discussions, they say, but they want us wiped off the face of the earth. They want us destroyed. Forgive someone who's currently trying to remove you. And I'm not just talking about Israel towards Palestine. I'm talking about Palestine's dream and vision that the nation of Israel would be dissolved and they could go back to living as farmers with self-direction.
But I think most Palestinians had come to realize that that's not going to happen.
Right, I agree.
And things did look better years ago. But as the indignities pile up,
Yes, they do.
I mean, if you're a people who's subjugated and you're made subservient and you're humiliated in every part of your life, then how are you going to feel? And how do you raise the next generation to feel like, oh, well, we can get along with these? Not when they, so it's a complicated mess, but I don't know, have hope that at some point in time, saner minds will be the leadership and not, not the leadership that you see on both sides.
Right, no.
Because they stink on both sides.
Yeah, they're hell-bent
On destruction.
Well, and vindicating
Yep.
a wrong or bearing witness to how wrong the massacre was by creating second massacre. Like, you did this, now you will pay. So yesterday, I heard the numbers up in like thousands and thousands of people in Gaza that have died. And most of them had no hand. I believe this. Gaza was not a great organized army of people.
If it
in
were,
its
there
history.
wouldn't have been a few guys on, hang gliders.
Hang gliders and motorcycles, right? They came in and just.
It would have been an army,
Right.
and no. So, but now, are the people going to say Hamas is evil? No, they're going to say the only ones who are standing up for us is Hamas. So you've just recruited a whole hell of a lot more people.
Right, you push them into the arms of their oppressor and the world's enemy. You
Right.
just push them into the arms.
And for the Israelis, get rid of Likud. And before the incident, it looked like they were going to be able to do that. People were out in the streets.
Right, I know, and then all
And
of a
now,
sudden, boom.
well, we'll wait till after this resolves itself. Well, I don't know. So the hearts are hardened on both sides. And it's the same the world over when people feel they've been slighted and you're occupying my space. The Balkans are starting up again with awfulness. And, if there were more indigenous Americans, I think we'd have, to contend with that, reparations and, because look what has happened. And it's not, I don't think it's a certain type of person, or it happens to all of us.
Yeah, it is. It's not inside one race or one group. It's a human
Shortcoming or
domination. Is believing that domination is your security. You do not want to be the one who is weak in this world. You do not. And the only way you can assure that is get out there and be the one who is the dominator.
And if somebody else has something, that must mean that you have less.
Right.
Instead of sharing.
Yeah.
But, I don't know.
And you said, the native populations, original people of the North America, if their voice continues to rise, some of the assumed ideologies of the Christian manifest destiny. This was God. That the domination of the native people happened, the extermination of those people happened because the European people from a variety of nations who arrived here thought this was God's plan to give them all this land and to wipe out the primitives, the people that were there that were, they perceived them as horrible people. And of course, they became horrible people when they were being exterminated in mass. And then we went, oh, see, they're just savages. They're just
poking the
terrible.
bear, right?
Yeah, they're just terrible people.
I was watching something on, I guess, Turner Classic Movies this morning, and it's African American Month,
Yes.
and it was about all the attempts at integrating and making things fair in the South. Of course, things weren't fair in the North either, but this concentrated on Mississippi. And to hear you see the town council, it's all white men, and it's not even young white men, it's all older
Old white
white men, and they sit there with a straight face and they say, this country is a white Christian nation, and we know that the Negroes, sometimes they said a different word, are not equal to the white people, and they have their place, and they are happy in it. they will not be happy if they, people come and get them all riled up and give them good educations. They are happy with their lot in life, and that is the way it was meant to be.
Right, that's the way God wants it to be.
Exactly, and they're not laughing, they're not going, ha, ha. I think they really believe
Oh, I do. I think
that.
they did believe it. They did.
It's horrible.
They did. And so when I see movies like that, let's see if I can figure out how to say what I think. I look at that reality, those old white men sitting around, holding on to a belief that we listen to it now and we go, are you out of your mind? So what I want to figure out about myself is, where am I like that today? Like, where, I'm not interested in continue to pile on them. I wanted to figure out, where am I like that? Where will a generation 100 years from now have a video of me sitting at a table like this, or one of our videos, and they will hear something that they will go, how did they ever hold to that? How did they believe that? How did they hold on? And it's probably not something I can do or accomplish, or I try to get at it by having conversations with people who aren't like me or don't see things the way I do, to talk together. But the opportunities for that are rare. And I just feel like we can so easily move into our silos and then begin to see who's the ones that are dumb, or like they're not, like, I don't know. You understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. I hear you, because I know that I'd probably be ashamed if somebody rewound the tape of my life when how many times you've said a certain segment of society is so stupid that they don't see the truth and blah, blah, blah. Well, what makes me, think that? Who am I? I don't know what they're experiencing. Right. Yeah, I get it.
I mean, I had no idea. I had no idea at all. I give my word to God, I had no idea that I was such a xenophobic and that I was such a male chauvinist when I was young in college. I had no idea, and I dated a woman who was calling me out on it, and she said, you talk like you think women and men are equal, but it's not true. You don't really believe it. And I was like, oh yes I do, blah blah. And she said, really? How come you always drive the car? And I said, what? She said, pull over, let me drive the car. And I went, not on your life. You're not driving the car. Why? Because it's my car, But I tell that as an illustration to say there are ways that I was able to duck and dodge. I was still reading the Bible through the evangelical eyes that said that, women should not have roles of leadership in the church. If I had been already ordained, I probably would have participated in my younger mentality. I would have participated in the movement to block women from becoming a clergy, because the Bible says, but it's, I don't believe the Bible any less now when, I don't even understand why I ever believed that.
Because society believed that.
Yes.
And we're all products of our society and our culture. I was watching on PBS last night a movie about the stewardesses and how they came to be, because initially the flights were so awful. They had stewards. They were men. But there was a young woman who was a nurse, and she said, the people on your flights are getting sick because it was the old prop.
Oh, yeah.
And there were fumes, and it was bumpy because they're not pressurized cabins, so they were flying low, and people were getting sick. And she said, wouldn't it be smart to have somebody who has nursing training on and to comfort people, to hold their hand. Well, that's how it started. Oh, and they started to think, even when things got better technologically, people want to ride with a nice-looking young woman, especially men who made up most of the
They're
flying.
most of the travelers, right?
And so this idea that women are for comforting and to look at and to wink, wink, nudge, nudge, maybe, get something going because they couldn't be married.
Right.
All this jazz. And then the outfits that they started to put them in. And finally, the stewardesses said, we're not having any of this. When the Equal Rights Amendment came, they said, we're going to fight for equal rights now. We're not getting paid as much as the male staff. There were still a few people, they called them pursers, that did the same job.
Oh, was that right? Pursers was the name of it?
But they got a lot more pay. They were housed in a single room in a hotel where the ladies had to share. And and when they brought them on the carpet for that, they said, well, women always go into the ladies' room in groups, so we just assume that they feel more safe. You're saving money, making us all jam into one space. It's really outrageous stuff. And I was like, okay, I never thought about stewardesses that way, but they were at the forefront of women's rights back in the day. And I was like, oh, yeah, they were, So, but why was it tolerated? Why did women want those jobs? Because if you had nothing, if your idea of what you were going to do for the rest of your life was be a mother and a wife, and that wasn't what you wanted.
Right, it was an option. It was a
Being
real
a
option.
stewardess was glamorous. You could
Right.
fly all around the world, but it had its drawbacks. It was really interesting. Yeah. Anyway.
I think about it, I didn't know that story the way you learned it, but I would think about it when I would fly, because nowadays it's about 50-50 men and women.
Right. Right.
And the men dress a lot like the women, and the women dress like the men,
And they
so-
can be older than 32.
And they can be older.
They used to have to
Yeah.
retire when they were
Right.
32, which meant they didn't get a pension.
Right, and they can be tall, and they can be short.
Right, and they can be overweight or they
Yes,
can be
they
underweight.
Okay, so we can put a bubble around that and go, thank God that idea got exercised.
Mm-hmm.
But back to my point is,
How did
my
we
prayer.
accept that?
Yeah, and how, where is it? Like, what are those things now that, I don't know, my 50-year later self would look back and say, how did you ever hold on to that?
Yeah.
How did you ever believe that? I know they've made it political, but I had my thoughts say, when one of the southern states passed a law that says the frozen embryos are people.
Oh, they just did, yeah,
Yeah,
Alabama.
they just did it yesterday, Alabama. The frozen embryos are people with all the rights and privileges of living, walking around human beings. And I go, wow, you will really go to great extremes to eliminate the fringe ideas so that your central idea, which is, and I still believe this, it's still a battle of women's rights. It's still a battle of women should be in the home, not out in the workplace, because the assaults on birth control, to me, the fights against birth control are trying to put women back into the cage, which says if you want a family, you're not going to be out here taking jobs from men.
Make America great again. They mean let's go back to the 1950s or before.
Yeah.
Before all of this nonsense about equality and
And I
people's
heard in the
rights.
list of things that are on their hit list is, it's frozen embryos are human beings, and then they want to eliminate birth control. They want it removed from our culture, and then what's next in line? They want daycare removed.
So you have to stay home.
Like the idea of government right now, is subsidizing daycare all across the country. It's subsidizing because there's a conflict between women in the workforce and what some people think is a shortage of jobs. So they figure if we can get women out of the workforce, then real opportunities for men will return again, right? We won't have to put up with women judges, and You know?
Or anything else that women want to
Right,
do.
or anything else, you know. Women are showing up all over the place. Can't you see this is all part of the degradation of the pure culture we used to have?
Yeah.
And we're not, you know, I feel like you can't win, because as soon as you win, the backlash will come. They will.
And after all, we're only a short time into this idea of equality for everyone. So, you
Yeah.
know, how's that working for you? Well, the first time they find something wrong in society, you put the blame on the people who
Right, on the people, change makers.
yeah.
See, it was fine before you did
uppity
that.
women and
Yeah.
you uppity blacks and whatever, you fill in the blank with whatever, folks you don't like.
I think I told you this before, but I carry it around in the forefront of my brain because I still can't believe I read it. I was traveling, I don't know, it was for General Assembly or something, and I was down in, I don't know, one of the southern states. And their big statewide newspaper, you know, it wasn't like a national one, but their statewide newspaper had, on like the third or fourth page inside, they had a picture of a guy I knew, and he had graduated from Princeton Seminary. And the title was, "Why is the Christian church failing in America? Why is it shrinking in America?" It was a big article, and this guy, ordained Presbyterian minister, was making the case that if you looked on the graphs, you know, like they do, Steve Karnacki does the graphs.
The big board.
If you would look on the big board, here's what you would see. The thriving of Christianity in Protestant and Christian churches was on the rise. It was growing. Protestant churches were adding space and new buildings and everything until one event. And that was when they changed the rules about women becoming pastors.
Oh, pastors, okay, almost like having a birth control pill.
Right,
Yeah.
and he,
Freedom.
he's my contemporary, and he's making the case that it was allowing women to be ordained as deacons in serving the church and allowing women to become pastors. He was, you can trace this. This is a fact. Look at the dates when this began to happen, and then look on the Karnacki curve and watch how the church and the role of church in society begins to decline.
You could also say it was the advent of jet airplanes. If you could say anything,
That's right.
because it would probably be true as time marches on, you know.
But what's interesting is
silly.
nobody subjected it to a laboratory for verification, but that newspaper in North Carolina is where it was. That newspaper put it out there as
yeah.
something, and I'm sure, look, I remember it because I was shocked by it, but I'm sure that around the Thanksgiving table, when they're talking about why only half the people come to church these days, I am sure that it comes up. If they had just never started ordaining women, you know, the Christian church bought its own disaster.
After all, Paul said, keep those women quiet in church.
He did.
There's a lot of things you can point to, but, you know, we're not the people of 2,000 and 3,000 years ago. Do you want to do that? I mean, you know.
And we also don't do it because of what Paul said. That is not why.
Paul is only reinforcing what the church elders at the time thought and what they think
And
now.
more so what they think now,
Yeah,
more
exactly.
so. Because evidence shows that as much as we don't want to know it, women, even in Paul's own life, were fundamentally important in the explaining and the propagation of Christianity.
Absolutely.
Recognized leaders within the communities.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't,
Just as much an apostle as Paul made himself, you
Right.
know? Who gives you the authority?
and Paul attributes what he understands of Jesus to 3 women.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't name a single man as his mentor.
And I can tell you that in Islam, you know, women are still not supposed to be leaders of the men in the community. They can be leaders of the women, but not the men. But who were the first people to believe Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? 3 people that I can think of, the first people that believed that he was the prophet was his wife Khadijah, and then his daughters. He had 4 daughters eventually, but the 2 older ones. Before
3 women.
any man,
3 women.
exactly. And after Jesus arose from the dead,
it's
who
the
were the
women.
first? Yeah,
They were the first evangelists. They were the witnesses. They were the ones who you had to believe. You had to believe a woman about the resurrection because
exactly.
the woman was the only one that saw him there in the tomb and the tomb empty at the same time. And she came back and reported what she had seen.
And Khadijah actually went to her cousin too, because the Prophet Muhammad was still concerned, like, I don't know, I might be going crazy, is something wrong, how did I get this revelation? She went to her cousin, who was a man, but was a Christian man, and he said, yes, that's the sign of prophethood, yes. So where are you getting your, from somebody from a different faith? Because there was no actual Islamic faith at the time. You go into a Christian, and you go into women.
It sounds like an echo of Christianity's verification because there was the women, and then remember even when Jesus was hanging on the cross, it was a Roman soldier who looked up and said, "That's the Son of God."
Somebody from the outside.
Yeah, somebody from the outside who
Yep.
recognized him.
I think there's a lesson in that somewhere, isn't there? I mean, and also people point, all the traditional, around the world, all the traditional societies prefer men over women. If you have children, you don't want girls, you want men, you want boys.
Right.
And for some practical reasons, they can help you. But the women help too. I mean, there's a lot of things that girls are made to do that, no man wants to do. But anyway, be that as it may, when you look to that and you say, well, why do, because Arab cultures, if you don't have, I remember getting asked by the old Palestinian women, I mean, much older than me, do you have children? Yes. I have 2 daughters. No sons? It's like, oh.
Right. Oh, too bad. Sorry.
Too bad for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that used to really anger me. And I didn't realize that my response to them should have been, look at the Prophet Muhammad. He had 4 daughters, he had 2 sons, they both died. Is God sending a message maybe that, if the girls are okay for the Prophet, then what are you upset about that you don't have sons, But anyway,
Well,
it's this age-old thing that there has to be somebody lesser than you for you to think well of yourself. I don't know.
Yeah, and the idea that's trying to get traction in the world we live in today is the idea of this egalitarianism. It's like women are women and men are men. And by the way, some women who thought they were women are actually more like males, and males who've been trying to be male are actually finding out they're more like females. And oh my goodness, no wonder everybody wants to go back to the way it used to be.
It was a lot more simple
Yeah,
when
it
we
was.
just kept those people quiet.
Well, yeah, we kept them quiet. We beat them up in high school.
Right.
We pushed them to the edges. I could still picture who they are in my high school class. 500 people, I could name for you 50 people who were struggling with their sexual identity. And no one cared about it, and no one knew about it. Teachers, administration, whatever, they just walked in the hallways like ghosts and zombies,
Yeah.
if they were lucky.
They were unseen.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is if you have people speaking out about those things, it's going to make the rest of us wonder.
Yeah.
Gee, there might be something more to gender than
Yeah.
this black and
Yeah,
white.
we can't afford that.
Yeah, that doesn't.
We can't have that happening.
No.
All the structure of society will fall apart.
Oh.
That I have some family members who believe that the complete end of American way of life, of a godly life, was liberalization of the divorce rules.
Oh.
Because the family, the nuclear family, is God's choice for how society is to be organized.
Sounds almost Mormon.
Well, it's very, very fundamentalist Christian. Very. And so I'm a divorced pastor. I'm a divorced man. And so I've assaulted the structure of God's plan for how the world is to survive.
Well, Barbara, Catholicism was kind of like that as well, right? I mean, it's easier, I think, to get a divorce now, but for a long time, you could not.
Well, it's still, in most places, you can't take the sacraments if you're divorced.
That's right. Yes, it's still that way. It is.
Wow.
Yep. Unless you have enough
And
money.
you can't get married again unless you get an annulment from the Pope, that you never really were married or never consummated the marriage or
Yeah,
whatever.
right.
Even if you have kids?
I've tried to work with a person who is seeking to get an annulment, and I read some of the documentation. This man had 2 children, and they were trying to say the marriage never happened. And so what he had to subscribe to was that, yes, he had sex, but it was only a physical act. It was not, he didn't have sex with his spirit, with his whole self. He didn't really enter into the event. So he was never married. Never married.
Okay.
Wow. And by the way, again, I don't know, the news right now is all coming racing back because, again, one of the southern states has an overture for elimination of no-fault divorce. They are moving to eliminate it because no-fault divorce makes it so easy to get divorced. And we all know divorce is the great enemy of society, right?
Oh, sure.
Oh, my goodness.
Well,
All right, listen, this is the Arise Shine. The good news is...
the good news.
The good news is the sun is coming up and God's way is going to shine on us all. Oh my goodness, I'll never hear that again, like I have heard it during all kinds of Christmas seasons and,
Oh, but it's still a beautiful sentiment.
it's a beautiful sentiment.
But
God is going to have the sun come up on the dark world.
And if you stop it right
Yeah,
there,
just
it's okay.
let it be for all of us. Let it be for all of us. All right. Thanks for tuning in, Barbara. We didn't get a chance to thank Colette before she left for her group, but okay. I will see you all again soon.
Have a good one. Take care.
Are you gonna, I have to send out a
I'll
Zoom.
be in the annual meeting. I'm sorry.
Right.
Am I going to what?
I have to send out a Zoom for the annual meeting.
Yeah, it would be nice.
Okay.
I'd like to be there.
All right.
Okay,
Goodbye now.
Barbara.
Talk to you later.
Take care.
Bye.
Have a
Enjoy
good
the
week.
cool weather.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I will. Take care.
Okay.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.
I'll tell you, talk about,
That's the,
oh, who is that? Was that Colette? I don't know.
could have been somebody else, because there was that funny voice that came in.
There was like a
there was
background,
something that
like somebody was listening anonymously. But I had turned on the gallery that usually shows you
Who's,
everybody that's listening and participating. Talk about, it's not about her being a woman, but I will tell you, when Chris is away as she is right now, I am like boat without motor.
Oh, well, you should let her know.
She's so, I don't know, she's the organizing principle of my day. You know, it's like, check in with her, we team up together, go about doing